Have you ever wondered what lies beyond this life? What if, in an instant, you were pulled from the safety of your everyday existence into the depths of despair, only to discover that your journey could change everything you thought you knew about life and faith? In this gripping story, we follow Sarah, a woman who faces a near-death experience that drags her from the warmth of her family into the chilling grasp of hell. But as darkness surrounds her, a radiant light emerges, Jesus offering hope amidst despair. As Sarah grapples with the consequences of spiritual neglect, she is tasked with a divine mission to awaken America from its slumber of moral decay. Join us as we explore the power of faith, the reality of both heaven and hell, and the urgent call for spiritual revival. Will Sarah's journey inspire you to reconnect with your own faith and purpose before it's too late? If you found Sarah's incredible journey compelling, be sure to hit that subscribe button and join our community. Here, we delve deep into stories of hope, faith, and transformation, exploring the unseen realms that connect us all. Don't miss out on our upcoming videos that unravel the mysteries of life after death and the powerful messages that can inspire change in our lives today. Like this video, share it with friends and family, and let's spark a conversation about the importance of reconnecting with our spiritual selves. Together, let's embark on a journey toward understanding and awakening. Your journey to enlightenment begins here. Subscribe now and be part of something truly transformative. It was a cool autumn evening in Boston, the kind of night that made you want to stay inside, wrapped in the warmth of family. Sarah Mitchell, a 45-year-old high school teacher, sat at the dinner table with her family. Laughter filled the room as her teenage children, Emily and John, playfully argued over the last slice of apple pie. Her husband, Mark, smiled as he watched them, the soft glow of the candles reflecting in his eyes. From the outside, everything seemed perfect, a loving family enjoying a peaceful evening together. But beneath Sarah's smile, there was something wrong. For months now, she had felt it, a nagging sense that something was off. At first, it was just tiredness, which she brushed off as the result of long days at school and the endless responsibilities of being a mother and wife. But lately, things had become worse. Her heart would race unexpectedly, and there was a strange pressure in her chest that wouldn't go away. She hadn't told anyone, not even Mark. She didn't want to worry them. After all, she had always been the strong one, always the one to hold things together. How could she admit that she was scared? Her mind wandered back to her father. He had passed away suddenly a few years ago, and Sarah had never truly healed from that loss. His death had shaken her to the core, especially when it came to her faith. Raised in a religious family, Sarah had always believed in God, prayed with her children at night, and attended church every Sunday. But after her father's death, doubt crept in. How could a loving God take him so soon? Why had her prayers gone unanswered? These questions haunted her, and slowly, she had distanced herself from her faith, though she never spoke about it openly. As she sat quietly at the dinner table, lost in thought, her daughter's voice broke through the haze. "Mom, are you okay?" Emily asked, her face full of concern. Sarah blinked, realizing she had been staring blankly at her plate. She forced a smile. "I'm fine, sweetie, just a little tired." But in truth, she wasn't fine. There was a strange sensation in her chest now, a heaviness that made it hard to breathe. She stood up to clear the dishes, but as soon as she did, the room spun violently. Her vision blurred, and before she could say anything, everything went dark. The sound of plates crashing to the floor shattered the peaceful evening. Sarah collapsed, her body crumpling to the ground in front of her terrified family. Mark was at her side in an instant, his heart pounding in his chest. "Sarah! Sarah!" His voice was frantic as he shook her gently, trying to wake her, but she didn't respond. John knelt beside her, his eyes wide with fear. "Mom, wake up! Please, wake up!" Emily stood frozen, tears welling up in her eyes. "Call 911!" Mark barked, his voice shaking as he held his wife's lifeless form. The next few minutes were a blur. The paramedics arrived quickly, their calm professionalism a stark contrast to the panic filling the room. They worked swiftly, lifting Sarah onto a stretcher and rushing her to the hospital. As the ambulance sped through the streets toward Massachusetts General, Mark sat next to Sarah, holding her hand, which felt cold and limp. He kept praying silently, hoping for a miracle, even though Sarah had stopped believing in them long ago. In the car behind the ambulance, Emily and John sat in stunned silence, their faces pale, hearts pounding with fear. None of them had been ready for this. How could they be? At the hospital, the doctors moved quickly, taking Sarah into the operating room. Her heart had stopped, and they fought desperately to bring her back. The sounds of machines beeping and the rapid movements of the medical team filled the air, creating a tense and urgent atmosphere. But then, the sound no one wanted to hear cut through the room. Flatline. The steady, piercing tone of the heart monitor filled the room as Sarah's heart stopped completely. The doctors continued their efforts, their faces grim, knowing they were running out of time. Outside, Mark paced in the waiting area, gripping his hands together as if the force of his hope could bring her back. Emily and John sat beside him, their faces tear-streaked, their breaths shallow as they waited, clinging to the faint hope that their mother would return to them. Mark held them close, whispering prayers under his breath. He hadn't prayed like this in years, but now, in this moment of desperation, he found himself pleading with God. Please, God, don't take her. Not now. Not like this. Emily buried her face in his chest, sobbing softly, while John sat in stunned silence, unable to process what was happening. Meanwhile, inside the operating room, the doctors pushed on, refusing to give up. But Sarah's body lay still, motionless on the table. It seemed like she was gone. But little did anyone know, Sarah's journey was far from over. Her story was only just beginning. The room fell into a tense, fragile silence as Sarah drifted between life and death. The world around her faded, and she could no longer feel her body or the worried hands of her family. It was as if a curtain had been drawn, separating her from the chaos of the hospital room. Her heart slowed, and for a brief moment, it felt like time had stopped. Then, a strange sense of calm washed over her. Sarah opened her eyes. Or rather, it felt as though she did. She was floating, weightless and untethered from everything. Below her, she saw the bright lights of the hospital room and her own body lying still on the operating table. Doctors rushed around, calling out commands, their faces tight with focus. Her husband, Mark, stood frozen in the corner, pale and speechless, while Emily and John huddled together, their faces streaked with tears. She watched this scene unfold as if it were happening to someone else. There was no fear, no pain, just a quiet detachment. It was like observing a memory. Is this it? Am I gone? She wondered, still unable to comprehend fully what was happening. She wanted to reach out, to let her family know she was still there, but her hands wouldn't move. Her voice wouldn't come. The strange calm held her in place, like a delicate thread connecting her to the living world. But then, in an instant, everything changed. Without warning, a dark force gripped her, pulling her down with violent, unimaginable strength. It was as if gravity had shifted, dragging her through the air faster than she could comprehend. Panic exploded within her as she was yanked downward, faster and faster. She struggled, but it was useless. The force was too powerful, too relentless. The hospital room, her family, everything disappeared into the distance as she plunged into darkness. She wanted to scream, but no sound came. The air felt thick, heavy, suffocating, as if the world itself was closing in on her. Fear gripped her heart and her mind raced. What is happening? She thought desperately. But before she could make sense of it, she hit the ground hard. The impact was brutal, knocking the breath from her lungs. Disoriented and shaken, Sarah pushed herself up, trying to understand where she was. The warmth and light of the hospital were gone, replaced by something far more sinister. All around her stretched an endless, nightmarish landscape. Flames licked at the blackened sky, casting eerie shadows across the scorched earth. The heat was unbearable, pressing in from all sides. The air reeked of sulfur and burnt flesh, thick with a suffocating smoke that stung her eyes. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as she took in the horrifying scene. This was not the peaceful afterlife she had imagined. This was hell. Everywhere she looked, there was torment. Souls twisted in agony, their bodies contorted in unimaginable pain. The ground beneath her feet burned with a searing heat, and the flames roared around her like a living beast. Rivers of molten fire snaked through the cracked earth, and in the distance, jagged cliffs rose into the blackened sky. Sarah's skin crawled as the cries of the damned echoed in her ears. Desperate, guttural screams of pain and despair. The sound was relentless, closing in on her from every direction. She turned, her eyes wide with terror, searching for a way out, but there was none. In every direction, there was only suffering. Sarah! The whisper, low and sinister, came from the shadows, sending a shiver down her spine. She spun around, her heart racing, but there was no one there, only the darkness and the flames. The voice called her again, this time closer, more insistent. "Sarah, you can't escape this!" Her breath came in ragged gasps as she stumbled forward, her feet burning against the scorched ground. She wanted to run, to flee from this nightmare, but her body felt heavy, weighed down by invisible chains. Panic gripped her chest, tightening with every second. This was real. This was happening. She was in hell, surrounded by the screams of the damned, the flames of eternal torment licking at her skin. There was no peace here, no escape, just endless suffering. She tried to push the thought from her mind, to convince herself it wasn't true. But the pain was real. The heat was real. The despair pressing down on her was all too real. The weight of hopelessness settled over her like a suffocating blanket. Sarah fell to her knees, her body trembling with fear. Tears streamed down her face, mixing with the soot and ash that filled the air. She had never believed hell was real, not like this, not a place of endless fire and suffering. But now there was no denying it. This was hell, and she was trapped. Just when Sarah thought she was lost forever, a brilliant light erupted from the darkness, pushing back the shadows that surrounded her. This light was so powerful and warm, illuminating the hellscape in a way that was almost unimaginable. Standing in that radiant glow was Jesus. His presence filled the air with an overwhelming sense of peace and hope, even in such a dreadful place. Sarah was both confused and curious. Why is Jesus here, she wondered. Why would he come into hell, a realm filled with despair and suffering? "Sarah," he said, his voice calm and soothing, "do not be afraid." Despite his comforting tone, fear gripped her heart. "I don't understand. I'm in hell. What can you do here?" "Why are you here?" she asked, her voice trembling. With a gentle wave of his hand, the chaotic noise and heat faded just a little. The light seemed to wrap around her like a warm embrace. "This place exists as a result of the choices made in life, spiritual neglect, and moral decay," he explained, his expression serious yet filled with compassion. "It is not a punishment for those who seek me, but a reflection of what happens when one distances themselves from truth and love." Sarah felt her heart sink as she listened. She thought about her life, the years spent drifting away from her faith, the doubts that had crept in after her father's death. "But I didn't think it could be this real. I didn't think I would end up here," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's easy to overlook the truth when the world around you offers so many distractions," Jesus replied gently. "But even in your neglect, you must understand the consequences. Hell is a reality for those who stray too far from the light." As he spoke, the shadows shifted, revealing familiar faces. People from her own community, neighbors she had known for years, and even a few from her childhood. Each face was etched with sorrow and regret. Their silent cries echoed in her mind, a haunting reminder of what had been lost. "Even America, a land built on faith, is vulnerable," Jesus continued, his gaze penetrating the chaos. "Many wander blindly, chasing after materialism, forgetting the essence of love and spirituality that connects us all." The weight of his words struck Sarah like a tidal wave. She realized the truth in what he was saying. She had allowed herself to drift, to turn away from her beliefs. In her quest for meaning, she had lost sight of what truly mattered. But amidst the heaviness of the moment, Jesus offered a glimmer of hope. "You are not destined to remain here, Sarah. Your journey serves a greater purpose, a warning to humanity." His eyes shone with compassion. "The USA is at a crossroads. While there is much darkness, there is also hope." With another wave of his hand, the hellish landscape began to transform. Images of small towns filled her vision. Communities coming together, turning back to their faith and embracing spiritual principles. People were praying, helping one another, and finding solace in their shared beliefs. Each moment was a testament to the healing power of faith. "Look closely," Jesus urged, pointing to the scenes before her. "This is the path to redemption. There is still time. It begins with individuals like you who are willing to share their stories and remind others of the importance of faith and love." Sarah's heart swelled with emotion, tears filling her eyes as she witnessed the beauty of redemption. It was a powerful reminder of the resilience of the human spirit. "Remember, Sarah," Jesus said softly, his gaze unwavering. "You have the ability to change the narrative. You can be a beacon of hope, even from the depths of despair. There is always a way back to the light." As his words resonated within her, Sarah felt a renewed sense of purpose igniting in her heart. this journey through hell wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something profound, a chance to rise, to reconnect, and to spread the message of love and redemption to those who needed it most. Taking a deep breath, Sarah felt a warm, inviting energy envelop her as Jesus reached out and grasped her hand. It was as if a gentle force pulled her upward, lifting her from the depths of despair. Together they soared away from the darkness of hell, leaving behind the chaos and suffering. As they ascended, Sarah's heart raced with a mix of fear and exhilaration. The contrast between the two realms was stark. The shadows of hell faded into a warm glow, a brilliant light welcoming her into a realm of extraordinary peace and beauty. In an instant, they emerged into heaven, a breathtaking landscape that felt both familiar and otherworldly. The air was infused with an overwhelming sense of love and harmony, and Sarah couldn't help but marvel at the stunning vistas that unfolded before her. Golden fields stretched endlessly, glistening under a gentle sun. Crystal clear rivers flowed like ribbons of silver, reflecting the vibrant colors of heaven's palette. Birds soared through the skies, singing melodies that resonated with her very soul. The serene beauty was reminiscent of Earth's most magnificent places, like the Grand Canyon's vastness or the enchanting tranquility of Yellowstone National Park. It was a scene so awe-inspiring that it filled her with a profound sense of connection to both the divine and the earthly. "Welcome to heaven, Sarah," Jesus said, his voice warm and soothing. "Here, you are safe. Here, you are loved." For a brief moment, Sarah felt a weight lift from her heart. The torments of hell seemed like a distant memory, and she embraced the tranquility enveloping her. But as they continued their journey, the atmosphere shifted. Jesus gestured with his hand, and Sarah found herself immersed in a series of visions. They floated above cities in the USA, where she witnessed the unsettling reality of turmoil. She saw the chaos in New York City, where the streets were filled with people fighting and shouting, anger and despair etched on their faces. Washington, D.C. appeared in disarray, a stark reminder of the moral decay that seemed to engulf the nation. "Look closely, Sarah," Jesus urged, his tone serious. "These are the consequences of losing faith, of straying too far from love and compassion. The world is fragile, and without spiritual renewal, society risks collapse." Her heart ached as she absorbed the suffering and chaos depicted before her. Each scene was a call to action, a plea for change. But just as despair began to creep back in, another wave of visions unfolded. She saw small towns and communities gathering together, hearts united in prayer and love. Families hugged, children played, and a sense of hope surged through the air. Churches were filled with congregants singing songs of praise, and people were reaching out to help one another, embodying the very principles Jesus had taught. "Here lies the hope for America," Jesus explained. "These moments of faith can spark a profound change. Look at how the light shines in the darkness, how love and unity can lead to healing and restoration." Tears welled in Sarah's eyes as she watched the scenes unfold. In the midst of turmoil, there was a flicker of hope. People were awakening to the truth, turning back to their spiritual roots, and embracing the love that connected them all. "Remember, Sarah," Jesus said gently, turning to face her. "You have witnessed the truth. Carry this message back with you. Share it with your family, your community, and beyond. The power of faith and love can transform lives and heal wounds." With each word, Sarah felt a sense of purpose growing within her. She understood that her journey was not just for herself, it was for everyone. She had been given a glimpse into the future, a chance to be a catalyst for change. As the visions faded, she held on to the hope they had ignited within her. The path ahead was clear. Armed with her newfound understanding and conviction, she would return to the world, ready to spread the message of love, faith, and redemption. As Sarah gazed into the future, her heart sank at the bleak visions unfolding before her. She saw America, a once thriving nation, fractured and divided. Political strife consumed the cities, each side entrenched in their beliefs, leading to an atmosphere thick with anger and distrust. The chaos was palpable. Protests erupted in the streets, with people shouting and clashing over their differences, each voice rising above the others in a cacophony of discontent. Natural disasters ravaged the land, hurricanes tearing through coastlines, wildfires consuming vast forests, and floods sweeping away homes. The destruction felt relentless, as if the very earth was crying out against the disunity and moral decay that plagued the nation. Sarah watched in horror as the fabric of society began to unravel, threatening to drag everyone down into despair. But amidst this turmoil, a glimmer of hope flickered in the shadows. Jesus gently guided her to focus on the smaller communities that were rising above the chaos. In her visions, she witnessed towns coming together, people joining hands in prayer and fellowship. Families gathered to support one another, sharing meals, resources, and love. Faith became the cornerstone of their existence, allowing them to flourish even as the world around them crumbled. "Look closely, Sarah," Jesus urged, his voice firm yet compassionate. "These communities are the key to America's salvation. They embody love, peace, and truth. In their unity lies the power to heal a fractured nation." Sarah felt a sense of urgency swell within her. She understood that the revival of America depended on the individual souls of its people. Each person held the potential for change. Each heart could reignite the flame of faith that had grown dim over time. "America must remember its roots," Jesus continued, his expression earnest. "They need to turn back to the teachings that promote love and compassion for one another. This is not just a collective journey. It begins with each soul." To drive home his message, Jesus recited a verse from the Bible that resonated deeply within her. John 3:16. "For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have eternal life." As the words hung in the air, they enveloped Sarah like a warm embrace. This verse encapsulated the essence of hope and the promise of salvation. It was a call to action, urging individuals to reconnect with their faith and embrace the transformative power of love. "Every person you meet carries this potential," Jesus added, locking eyes with Sarah. "Each individual can choose to step away from despair and into the light. They can share the message of love and hope, spreading it like wildfire across the nation." With every vision and teaching, Sarah's resolve grew stronger. She realized that her mission was clear: to return to her community, to her family, and to share the divine message she had received. She needed to inspire those around her to awaken to their faith and understand that even in the darkest times, love could triumph over hate, and hope could prevail against despair. As the weight of her mission settled on her shoulders, she felt a deep sense of purpose. It was no longer just about her journey. It was about leading others back to faith, igniting a revival that could change the course of the nation. "I will do it, Jesus," she vowed, her voice steady with determination. "I will share your message. I will be a light in the darkness." Jesus smiled, and in that moment, Sarah knew she was not alone. With his guidance, she could navigate the challenges ahead and bring the transformative power of faith back to her community and beyond. Sarah's return to her body was like waking from a dream, but this time with a sense of clarity and purpose she had never known. She gasped for breath, eyes fluttering open as her surroundings came into focus: the sterile hospital room, the steady hum of machines, and most of all, the faces of her family. Mark, her husband, was the first to notice. His eyes, red and weary from days of waiting, widened in disbelief. Emily and John, their children, stood at his side, frozen as if afraid to believe what they were seeing.
"Sarah!"
Mark's voice cracked, thick with emotion. "I'm here," she whispered, her voice weak but full of meaning. Slowly she sat up, feeling the weight of life flooding back into her limbs. It was real. She was alive. But there was something more, something pressing against her chest, urging her to speak. The doctors rushed into the room, their faces mirroring the disbelief of her family. Just moments ago, they had been preparing for the worst. Now they stood speechless, witnessing a miracle. Sarah had returned from the brink of death, but she knew she hadn't come back alone. She had come back with a message. "I saw Jesus," Sarah said, her voice gaining strength with each word. "I was in hell and he came for me." A stunned silence fell over the room. Mark and the children exchanged looks, unsure of what to say, while the doctors stood in awe, their medical knowledge faltering in the face of something beyond their understanding. "I have to tell you," Sarah continued, her voice urgent. "I saw the future, our future. Jesus showed me what could happen if we don't change. America is in danger, and it's not just the country, it's our souls." Her words hung in the air, heavy and filled with a truth that was hard to ignore. Mark moved closer, taking her hand in his. "What do you mean, Sarah?" he asked gently, trying to make sense of the impossible. "Jesus showed me what's coming. Our world is tearing itself apart. People are turning away from love, from each other, and from God. But there's hope, Mark. There's still time if we change, if we turn back to what truly matters." Her family was captivated, drawn in by the intensity of her experience. It was clear that Sarah had returned with more than just life. She had returned with a mission. The doctors, though skeptical, couldn't deny the miraculous recovery unfolding before them. Sarah's resolve deepened. She knew this wasn't just for her. This was a message for everyone. "I need to share this," she said, looking each of them in the eyes. "We need to wake people up, to remind them of their faith, their love. It starts with us, right here, right now." Mark, still shaken but now resolute, nodded. "We'll help you," he said, his voice steady. "We'll tell people." And so it began. Sarah's divine mission, born from the depths of her near-death experience, quickly spread through her family, her friends, and her community. Each conversation sparked another, as people gathered to hear what she had seen and felt. At every gathering, Sarah spoke with passion and conviction, warning others of the potential for downfall if they strayed too far from their spiritual connection. "We have to change," she told them. "We have to find our way back to love, to kindness, to truth. We've forgotten what matters, but it's not too late." The impact was immediate. Small groups formed, filled with people seeking to reconnect with their faith, to find hope in a time of uncertainty. Prayer meetings grew in number, and the sense of community strengthened. Little by little, Sarah saw the seeds of change begin to sprout, just as Jesus had shown her in the visions of small towns rekindling their faith. Her message, though simple, resonated deeply. There's still time, but we must act now. We must return to what's real, to what saves us. As she stood before these growing gatherings, Sarah felt the weight of her responsibility, but also the power of her calling. She wasn't just sharing a story. She was part of a movement, one soul at a time, turning hearts back to what truly mattered. And with every step, she knew she was fulfilling the mission that had been given to her in those moments of life and death. Her journey had only just begun, but it was clear that Sarah had returned with a purpose: to bring light where there was darkness, to offer hope where there was despair, and to remind the world that redemption was still possible, if only they would listen. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm, golden glow over her neighborhood, Sarah sat on her porch, deep in thought. The incredible journey she had taken, from the shadows of hell to the beauty of heaven, had transformed her in ways she could hardly grasp. She felt a profound shift within herself, a renewed sense of purpose that surged through her veins. "Life is a choice," she pondered, her heart racing. "Every single day we choose between love and fear, truth and denial." The evening air was thick with possibility, and Sarah felt the weight of responsibility resting heavily on her shoulders. Her experience had not been just a personal revelation. It was a clarion call for action, a plea for everyone around her to awaken. As she gazed at the faces of her neighbors, she realized they each carried their own burdens, struggles with faith, doubts that gnawed at their spirits. "We can't ignore the truth any longer," she murmured to herself. "It's time for a spiritual awakening." Sarah envisioned America standing at a crucial crossroads. The haunting visions Jesus had shared with her replayed in her mind. The chaos enveloping cities, the moral decay threatening to tear society apart. Yet alongside those grim images were glimpses of hope. Small towns reigniting their faith, communities uniting over shared values, individuals rediscovering their spiritual essence. It became clear to her that transformation was possible, but it required collective effort. With newfound determination, she picked up a pen and began to write her thoughts, crafting a powerful message for her community. "It's time to seek the light," she wrote passionately. "We must remember that our souls continue after death. Life is not the end, it evolves. The choices we make today will shape our tomorrow." As she finished, a wave of inspiration washed over her. The urgency of her message pulsed through her heart. She recalled Matthew 6:33, "But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you." This verse resonated deeply within her, serving as a poignant reminder of the promise that spiritual awakening offers. It was a call to action, not just for her, but for everyone willing to listen. "Let's focus on what truly matters," she declared. "We can rebuild our lives, our communities, and our nation through love, truth, and faith. The future hinges on our willingness to awaken spiritually and share that light with others." Day by day, Sarah poured herself into spreading this message. She spoke at local gatherings, reached out to friends and family, and inspired others to reconnect with their spiritual roots. The urgency in her voice resonated with many, igniting a spark in their hearts. they began to understand that they were part of something greater, a movement toward healing and redemption. In her heart, Sarah recognized that her journey had transcended her personal experience. It was about connecting with others. She had glimpsed the realms of heaven and hell, serving as a reminder of the choices before them. The moral and spiritual awakening she sought wasn't just for America. It was for every soul yearning for connection, love, and peace. As she sat on her porch, watching the vibrant colors of the sunset, Sarah felt a wave of hope wash over her. Yes, the shadows of despair may loom large, but the light of love and faith could pierce through, guiding all those willing to seek it. With a smile, she whispered into the night, "Together, we can create a brighter future. Let's awaken our souls and embrace the journey ahead." Thank you for joining us on this powerful journey with Sarah. Her story serves as a reminder of the importance of faith, family, and the spiritual awakening we all need. If you found inspiration in her experience, please take a moment to reflect on your own life and the connections that matter most. Don't forget to subscribe for more uplifting stories that can transform your perspective and deepen your understanding of life and spirituality. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. And if you enjoyed this video, please like it and share it with your loved ones. Together we can spread the message of hope and healing far and wide. Until next time, remember, your journey matters and your spirit is powerful. Keep seeking, keep believing, and keep shining your light.